Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, Democrats finally forced to release their 2024 autopsy, essentially what they did wrong in the 24 election. I could go on and on for hours about it. And there really aren't any revealing details, just essentially saying that they focused too much on Trump. They didn't focus enough on the working man and woman. I don't think they're doing either one of those things differently now. And here's the big headline, if this will not make you laugh. One of the things that the Democratic Party is saying that they could have done better, that maybe would have helped Kamala Harris be President Kamala Harris, is if they had promoted her more, if they had made her more visible in the administration before they even announced that she was running. But let's not forget, it was because they were putting Joe Biden out there. Joe Biden was so dismal during the debate, then they had no choice after that than to sort of put her in. They could have done a fair election. They could have put it out there and had sort of a primary. There are a lot of people in the party who said, let's put the best person out there. And instead they self-appointed, remember, to put Kamala Harris in that position. And now they're saying, oh, if we had promoted her more. Well, the reason, quite frankly, they didn't promote her more was because she wasn't good. I contend if they had done all the things that they're claiming in their autopsy, that she would have gotten clobbered even more in the election. So here's a word to the Democrats. Don't listen to your own advice. I don't know how much they spent on that autopsy, but that report should be dead on arrival. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. And some other very sad news from the world of racing.
Breaking news.
This just in, NASCAR superstar Kyle Busch is dead at the age of 41. That is stunning. I met Kyle a number of years ago. He is probably one of the most decorated NASCAR race drivers, won over 200 national wins, really untouchable in the field of NASCAR racing. And boy, there are so many NASCAR fans around the country. He was definitely one of the greatest drivers ever, driving for Richard Childress Racing. And I know Richard Childress Racing. I used to work in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I used to live pretty close to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. So I used to cover a whole bunch of NASCAR races and really know just how devoted people are to the sport. It's a fun sport. I love NASCAR. It's great. I've been in the pits, and I've been up in the balconies, and I've been everywhere in between. And every part is really, really fun to watch. But this is really troubling. 41 years old, so young. And he was hospitalized apparently earlier this week, and in a race said that he was having trouble breathing, coughing very badly, had he thought was some huge sinus cold. That's what they were reporting early on. But then he was rushed to the hospital this week and suddenly passed away. So if we get more details on this, we will definitely let you know. But a very young man with an extraordinary track record on the track, and someone who also did a lot of charities. I met him at a charity event. He was very dedicated to young people and passing the message on to young people. So this is really heartbreaking, and a wonderful guy, wonderful family guy too. I met his wife. Just a really heartbreaking situation. Everybody also talking tonight, and this is still just wow. The New York legislature, of course, it's Democrats there. This is what happens when you have a one-party state, essentially, in New York. They have now passed a dangerous sanctuary city law. And it is very troubling, very much an extreme anti-ICE measures in this law, essentially saying you cannot cooperate. You cannot have any cooperation with local law enforcement with the feds. Now, this has always been, different states have taken the sanctuary city, issue upon themselves. This is now statewide. Kathy Hochul, I don't believe she has signed it yet. They expected that she would sign it at some point, possibly later on tonight. She's been a supporter of this, so it's just a formality. But until she signs it, it does not become law, but it is passed by the legislature, and she's been endorsing this. So this is really bad news for the state of New York, for citizens, for public safety. And I want to play, here's a little clip. This is Mike Lawler. We talked with him earlier, and this is when he heard about the news coming about, and he said this is going to be very bad for the Empire State.
In addition, we'll talk about immigration and border security. And, New York State today is passing a law to make New York a sanctuary state and refuse any cooperation between local law enforcement. The parents of Sheridan Gorman, an 18-year-old girl who was brutally murdered in Chicago just a few months ago, they live in my district. They will be there tomorrow, and certainly it'll be powerful to hear their story and that of their daughter. I think there's so many issues impacting the country right now, and we're going to focus on them. And I think it's important for folks to be able to hear from the president directly on it.
And President Trump is going to be tomorrow in Rockland County, New York, with Mike Lawler. It's the first time an American president has been to Rockland County, get this, in 50 years, 50 years. So this is a biggie, and it'll be interesting to see if President Trump talks about this because, of course, nobody better than protecting the homeland than President Trump. So how can a state now decide, okay, we want everybody across the state, you cannot cooperate with ICE? And what that means is that law enforcement can't go into the jails. They can't go get these individuals. Law enforcement, local ones, cannot comply according to this law. What's going to happen? Could they be sanctioned? Could somebody lose their job if they try to comply and do the right thing and try to help federal law enforcement? And this is even on the worst of the worst of the worst. So there's a real problem here. This is Looneyville, and this is so, so dangerous. So one of the things we talked about on Katz and Cosby earlier, and I wanted to play this for you guys because it was myself, it was Judge Richard Weinberg, it was Ed Cox, who is the GOP chair, and we also had former Democrat New York Governor David Paterson in the studio. And we were all together when this news broke, and we were like, whoa. And the first thing that came out, and John was saying, which was brilliant, saying that these local officials need to band together and fight against this legislation, essentially go after New York State. I mean, if you look at it, can't they do that? Because you're now suddenly telling them not to comply with federal law. That's not appropriate. And you're telling them not to cooperate with ICE, trying to round up some really bad individuals. This is really dangerous. So there's a lot of things on the line here, and the stakes couldn't be higher for New York. So I wanted to play a little bit of that clip because here's a little bit. We call it our Katz and Cosby team talk, but boy, we were fired up today. Here it is. Wow. We were just talking about this news that George Borrello just broke with us, that the legislature in New York State has approved essentially for the state to be a sanctuary state. I mean, this is crazy, Judge Weinberg.
And to ban local governments from cooperating with immigration authorities, federal immigration authorities. This is a disaster. You're going to have the violence in the streets of New York when ICE goes in to try to remove and seize these illegal criminal migrants, just like Minnesota.
Your Honor,
Ed Cox.
But there are Republican county execs in certain counties that just will not follow that law.
Well, the question becomes, we have to get a copy of that bill and find out what the sanction is.
And then the question is, what happens if they decide, to your point, not to do it? What do you think, Ed? And Judge Weinberg, what do you think first on that?
I need to see what the legislation says in terms of what the sanction is. They're going to make it criminal. They make it a civil penalty.
What, are you going to
removal
start
from office?
rounding up local executives who don't want to abide?
Those are the ones that'll turn
He'll
in.
then be
Yes.
a marter. He will be
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Governor.
The thing is that in these situations, I would think that the Republican Party, because that's the party that's in the minority here, would sue the state.
That's right, because it's a violation of federal law. And
Exactly.
This is, right in the federal jurisdiction.
It'll
It's
be
not a state
decided when?
jurisdiction.
The 12th of November?
John, I think that might go very quickly.
Really?
Because- yeah, I really do.
Yeah,
Sure.
that could be interesting.
I think the one who should sue is the county executive who said, "Screw this, I'm not going to obey it."
Right.
And just as well, Your Honor, the same thing. It would be the county executive.
Maybe what you would do is get all the county executives to band together. Either you are for sanctuary cities or you're not for sanctuary. Ed Cox, you are the state GOP state chairman. I think you should make a suggestion.
You're absolutely right. They defy the law and they say we're going to go ahead and work with ICE with ICE in order
to obey federal law. We're not going to
get the worst of the worst out. That's the way to do it. That's what's happening in Nassau right now.
That's
why it's the safest county in the United States.
Sanctuary cities and states are unconstitutional. It violates the Supremacy Clause of the United States with respect to federal immigration law.
You make a few phone calls tomorrow. Are you back on
tomorrow?
Great
idea, John.
So you'll report back to
Very
all of
good.
us tomorrow to a million
Chairman?
people listening.
Okay, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman,
Jeff.
I think that you not only should you do what John said, but the person who should step up and let it be known this is going to happen would be your candidate for governor.
Yeah,
You bet.
absolutely. He should be leading the charge.
And by
That's
the
what
way,
he's
there's
doing
no
right
charge
now.
for
He
that
is working
advice.
with ICE to get the worst of the worst out of Nassau.
Then
and that's
maybe
what-
we should try to have Bruce Blakeman on tomorrow.
That's a
By the
great
way,
idea.
Bruce Blakeman is going to be the speaker at the Southampton breakfast this week.
Oh, fantastic. The hottest breakfast in town.
Absolutely.
You know what I want to remind everybody? And you hit this with George. The key is it's not safe for the community when you have these type of barriers too.
It goes into the streets.
Exactly, because it forces ICE to do what happened in Minneapolis because they had to wait till they got into the streets to arrest them, as opposed to getting the worst of the worst, to your point, Ed, in jail.
And you know
then
what
it's
they're doing?
smooth, then it doesn't cause the hassle, and it doesn't cause all these problems.
And Rita, you know what they're doing as we speak? They're printing the posters and the T-shirts to get ready for the demonstrations in the street.
Oh, yeah, big time. Just think about how chaotic. This is huge, you guys. If this goes through, and then the battles, just like you said, Bruce Blakeman should be leading the charge, saying, I'm going to follow federal law and
is Kathy
protect
Hochul going to sign this piece of garbage?
Of course.
Yes.
She already said she would.
And she probably is doing it tonight, or if not, first thing in the morning. We'll keep you posted on that. But that really is just a formality at this point, but an important one. Can you believe this? You heard the fire. When we heard this, we thought, you've got to be kidding me. That New York State would now try to put these crazy sanctuary city policies, which Judge Weinberg said obviously are unconstitutional to begin with. They're a violation of federal law. But now New York State is extending it to the full state. And already there are people, of course, who are not obeying by that because they're saying this is nonsense. We're going to follow federal law. We're going to uphold federal law. People like Bruce Blakeman, who's the Nassau County executive. He is running for the GOP, of course, for governor of New York. But this is a huge issue, and I bet this is going to become an enormous election issue. And it'll be fascinating to see if President Trump, as I mentioned, who's going to be in Rockland County tomorrow, if he's going to bring it up, because he cares a lot about going up against these crazy sanctuary cities that are harboring criminal migrants. And this also goes to everybody. You look at it, some really bad folks. So now you want to have them what? Out on the street? And then you're going to have ICE chase them down the streets of New York City or of Albany or of all these different cities around the state. You're going to have to chase them. Think about the chaos. And Judge Weinberg and John brought up some big points about the protests. Remember in Minneapolis, all those protests that were happening were because they didn't want them to suddenly go into the homes and the streets because Tim Walz wasn't cooperating. Remember, Jacob Fry, the Minneapolis mayor, wasn't cooperating, nor the governor, Walz. So what was happening there was they had to suddenly wait for them to get released or show up at their home and then go get them. And then they'd have to chase. And what was happening was these protesters who have these little apps, they were connecting with one another, chatting and saying, oh, good, new arrest might happen tomorrow. Or we're hearing on the two-way that they're going to such and such street, or they're going to release Bob tomorrow. So you'll want to show up there where Juan is getting out. So they'd all show up there. It's a very orchestrated, same signs, huge vans, some of them armed. And who's funding them? Big money's funding them. So what, now you want to bring that chaos that we saw in the streets of Minneapolis to the streets of New York? What a disaster. We're going to take your calls when we come back. 1-800-848-9222. You can tell I am fired up tonight.
The Rita Cosby Show. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go to your calls, guys. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Dom in Minnesota on line 2. So, Dom, what are you doing? You might be transporting the chaos from Minnesota to New York. Is that the plan?
Yeah, Rita, I would say a few things that you will like and some you may not, so bear with me, okay?
Always. We love you. Go ahead.
The Democrats' autopsy of 2024, and including the sanctuary state of New York City now, New York State, should be a godsend to Republicans as a campaign strategy. John Morgan, the billionaire Democratic donor, was asked about the autopsy. He said, I am from Kentucky, and I say get rid of Kamala, because no matter what you feed it, that dog will not hunt. And if you can't run a campaign, you can't run the country, and Kamala should go away for good.
I agree, but she may be coming back.
Yeah, that's the good part. But the not so good part is if you can't, I am very much opposed to Trump's $1.5 billion weaponization fund. And here's why. Because there is significant Republican opposition to it. It's almost like Trump doesn't care about how this might affect the midterms. That's my concern. I don't know. He keeps saying that if the Democrats win, we'll lost the country, but I wish he wouldn't stick to this thing and he would kind of, sidestep it and give it.
Well, and I think, Dom, by the way, I think part of that is also there's sort of two different voices within the Republican Party. Some of the ones who are blocking this now or trying to are ones that were upset that he didn't endorse them and maybe is pushing with other folks. Dom, do me a favor. I'm going to have you stick with us because we're going to go to a break because I also want to go back to you and hear your thoughts why you think this is a godsend for the Republican Party in New York. Because I do agree with you because it's just so over the top. But I want to hear your thoughts as to why and hear more on the $1.8 billion.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming to you from Kalamazoo, Michigan, where a public safety officer is being hailed a hero after having saved a mother and her baby during a big house fire by catching her baby drop from a window. Michael Arnett, he's an officer with the Department of Public Safety, was among those who responded to the house fire. Dispatchers, by the way, were on the phone with the mom who said that she and her baby were trapped inside and the house was engulfed in flames. The dispatch said they lost communication with the mom and child. So obviously everybody got very concerned. But moments later, Officer Arnett spotted the mother through the upstairs window suddenly of the home. He screamed to her and told her to kick out the screen window and drop her baby to him. The tense moments, by the way, on body cam footage caught it all. The mother quickly did as asked, a move that police say saved the little girl's life. Arnett added she had zero hesitation on saving her baby first. After catching the baby, Arnett handed her off to another officer and then got a ladder quickly under the window to get the mother out to safety. Both are expected to be doing okay and are expected to make a full recovery. The home, by the way, burned to the ground. So, boy, are they lucky to get out thanks to our great men and women in blue, and especially Officer Michael Arnett. And everybody, we are talking, of course, about so much on the line, especially so many cities dealing with crime. And New York is really bracing, like cities around the country. They're expecting, as you heard, 5 to 7 million people coming in potentially for the World Cup. All these different events taking place in so many major cities across America. And you can imagine, at a time like this, with everything going on with Iran, with everything else just normally, all the threats coming to all the different cities, there is massive, massive security. From the air, from the ground, a lot of it you'll see, a lot of it you won't see. It'll be like undercover. And it's going to be loaded with federal and local law enforcement. And just a little bit ago, Jessica Tisch, she is the commissioner of the NYPD. She came out with a really chilling warning saying this is an unprecedented moment and there is unprecedented in terms of threats against the homeland. Take a listen. This is, again, the NYPD commissioner.
I began my career building out the NYPD's counterterrorism capabilities. And in my 18 years in government, I have not seen a threat environment quite like this one, where multiple pressures are active at the same time and where developments abroad can have immediate consequences here at home. Just last week, a commander for Kataib Hezbollah, a designated foreign terrorist organization aligned with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was charged with helping direct 18 attacks and plots against Jewish and American targets overseas since hostilities began in Iran on February 28th. And he allegedly tried to bring that terror here to New York City. According to the complaint, he sent a map, photograph, and identifying information for a New York synagogue to someone that he believed could carry out that attack.
Very frightening. And that guy was planning an attack not just on New York at a synagogue, but in 2 in Los Angeles, 1 in Scottsdale, Arizona. And that's just one of the many. I mean, that's what's really scary. And when you have a World Cup, you're going to have people from all over the world, Middle Eastern countries. Right now, Iran is playing. They're one of the teams that's playing. At first, they weren't going to. Now they're coming. I'd be keeping an eye on those minders. I'd be keeping an eye on the players, too. Who knows who they put in there right now at this time? Remember the crazy story, too, of the Iranian girls soccer team? Remember when they were playing in Australia and the minders were like, at first the girls were like, yeah, we want to defect. And then suddenly they turned out there was a spy among the minders who was watching them. And that's what turned out. So they suddenly, I think only 1 or 2 in the end ended up defecting. And the others actually went back because they got threats to their family. How scary is that? So who knows who pretends like they're the coach? Who knows who pretends? There are so many things. Who knows who's in the fans? I mean, there are a lot, and maybe it's not even on the Iranian team. You never know. I mean, this is really scary stuff. So that's why we've got to get as many bad people off the streets and try to get not the opportunity where you could potentially see those who might have already come into the country. Maybe they're a sleeper cell that's already there that might be coordinating already with a foreign country. We've seen stories about the cartels working with the Iranians. That's the last thing you want. And we had a wide open border under Joe Biden, which they kind of left out of the Democratic autopsy report about 2024. I'd say that was a big reason why they lost in 2024 as well. But before we go back to Dom in Minneapolis, Dom, here it is. This is Mayor Jacob Frey from your wonderful city of Minneapolis. And he is vilifying yet again ICE, vilifying President Trump. He kind of does it all in one fell swoop.
ICE is not just the federal police force that he's developed. It is his. And there's a historical analog here, which is the SS. The SS was unaccountable to the parliament. They answered only to Hitler. ICE also, once they get the funding and have these massive increases to the extent that it's larger than the FBI, they largely don't need approvals from the congressional body. It is very much Donald Trump's force.
I mean, this is crazy. Equating ICE with the SS and doing it with a straight face and still doing it to this day. And now, as you just heard, New York State, the legislature here has passed to have the state become, quote, a sanctuary state. In other words, saying all jurisdictions should not be cooperating with ICE. They can't go into the jails. We won't allow them to cooperate to help them in any shape or form. They want to have ICE flailing at a time where there are heightened threats against major cities across this country. What are they trying to do to this country? What are they trying to do to America? 1-800-848-9222. Let's go back to Dom in Minnesota. And Dom, thank you for holding on. I know right before the break we were talking about the fact that you think it's a godsend to the Republican Party, what just happened here in New York. Explain.
Yeah, first off, Jacob Frey is fondly called the man, baby, mom jeans here in Minneapolis. That's what they call it. So, I think.
Hey, Dom, you got to repeat that. Dom, you got to repeat that because you were breaking up a bit. So repeat again. What are they called? A Fry guy?
Jacob Frey is fondly called the man, baby, mom jeans here. That is
small fry.
So, I think the New York sanctuary state issue and illegal immigrant crime and the Amy Buck in Minneapolis 42-year sentencing for the fraud that she perpetrated in feeding the children should be tasty pudding for any candidate running for governor or any office in New York and Minnesota. Remember Lee Zeldin? He came close to winning the governorship in New York. So I would love for these guys to try it again, especially if they had an AOC Kamala ticket in 2028.
Oh, yeah. But first, of course, by the way, on the governorship, it is an election year in New York. So we'll see. You got Bruce Blakeman, who's a great guy. And in fact, in Nassau County, it's the safest county in America, by the way, guys. And he has been definitely allowing local authorities to work with ICE, which I think is part of why it's the safest county in America. So he actually, to your point, has a great talking point now because he can say, yeah, I'm planning on carrying through with this. I am planning, on pushing my policies that's worked so well in Nassau County. And now they want to do this. Here's a perfect example when it's done right. And he's got a great example there with Nassau County. Dom, thank you so much. You are terrific. And let's see what happens with small fry. That's for sure. Let's go to Stan in Forest Hills. Go ahead, Stan. On line 3. Go ahead, Stan.
Hello?
Stan, there you are. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Stan.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep, I hear you great.
Okay,
no worries. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not worried about the state with this situation. This administration, the Trump administration, isn't going to, talking about illegal immigration, they ain't throwing out 20 million people. In fact, they want them. So you'll excuse me. I'm not worried about that situation.
Wait a minute. Who wants 20 million people?
He's going after the criminals. Okay, I understand that. Okay?
Yeah, but obviously the New York legislature doesn't understand that, Stan.
Just a minute. I do understand that.
I know you do. I'm saying the New York legislature doesn't.
Let me not.
Yeah, go ahead, Stan. I'm actually Stan. If you stop for a second, Stan, I'm actually praising you. So what I'm saying is you're correct, but the New York legislature doesn't agree with you, and that's troubling. I wish they were agreeing with you.
As far as the criminals, okay, but the bigger cancer is the other 19 million people that are here, and he has no intention of throwing them out. I'm not. No way, no how. It's impossible. He's not going to do it. In fact, he has said it that he might give them pardons or something like that in the past. Give them work permits. So forget about this phony thing about the criminals will get this guy out. Yeah, that's okay. But the major cancer is the 18 million that are here. And he's not going to throw them out. He wants them here for cheap labor in this country. So let's get real. Let's tell the truth.
All right. So, Stan, now I got to cut you off because you're not being real and not telling the truth. The truth of the matter is there are so many people here that have committed serious crimes, repeat offenders. And you just said, oh, yeah, let's get rid of them. Stan, I wish that the others, and I know you're a Democrat, I wish that they had as much common sense. They're not saying what you're saying. You make it sound like they're all saying, yeah, we all agree that you got to get rid of the worst of the worst. They're not saying that. They're not agreeing with you in any shape or form. They're putting roadblocks even on those individuals. And that's why they look so lunatic. I mean, they're not cooperating. They don't want them to hand them over at the jails. And usually if you're in a jail, typically you're a pretty bad person if you got there. For most of the case, all right? So they've committed multiple offenses, and now they don't want to hand them over to the feds? Does that make any sense to you? You just said, oh, yeah. You're like, oh, yeah, that's a given. It's not a given, Stan, and you're not even responding to what this issue is. They're saying nobody should be transferred over. You know, if you've committed multiple crimes, we're not going to still make it easy for law enforcement. They want the protests in the streets, Stan, and that's your party, and your party needs to own up to it. You can't just make it sound like, oh, yeah. You saw what happened in Minnesota. You want to see that on the streets of New York? You're a New Yorker. I know you love this state. So you tell me, you want to see that in the streets?
Of course I don't want to see that in the States. But the harsh reality is, I know it, but you won't talk about it. He's not throwing out, as much as these criminals are here. You're right. Get them out, find them, and so forth. But there's 20 million, 15 and 19 million people here that are not supposed to be here. He's not going to get rid of them. In fact, he welcomes them. So
I'm not sure if he welcomes them, Stan. That's actually not accurate either. I know he would love to get rid of them and have them vetted and then come back in. And there were about 2 million, at least early on, that did kind of take that offer, that were either deported or, quote, self-deported. Because what they did was then they expedited them to come back in. He'd love to vet every single one of them. So actually, that's not true. But what is true of what you're saying is that it is going to take a long time to get somebody, to get 19 million out of the country. And obviously, ultimately, that is an impossible task. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to get as many as you can, at least vetted. And I actually like their idea of saying, hey, self-deport, then you come to the front of the line. He's not saying he wants to get rid of good people. He just wants to know who's in this country and make sure that they're cleared and vetted. I mean, we're a country of immigrants, but they have to also abide by the laws. You can't just sneak in the middle of the night. And to your point, you just still are very dismissive about this 1 million plus of illegal hardened criminal migrants. 1 million hardened criminal migrants can do a lot of damage in this country, and you know it, and I know it, Stan. And I applaud him for trying to get at least those first. And if others get swept up because they're hanging around some bad folks, well, that's what happens. And they need to understand that, too, that maybe you shouldn't be hanging around a murderer. Maybe it's a good idea to sort of stay away from somebody with a murderer with a track record like that. But I think, and look, he'd like to find the right balance, but you got to at least get rid of the worst of the worst first. And these folks in New York don't want to even do that, Stan. And you won't even admit, you're just like, oh yeah, let's get rid of them next. That's a massive task. 1 million horrible, hardened individuals that your head of your party, Joe Biden, allowed. I mean, that's a disgrace. And we're going to feel that for generations to come. Let's go to Joaquin on line 2. Joaquin, your thoughts tonight after Stan. I need some sanity. Go ahead, Joaquin.
Good evening, Rita. First of all, would you like to know, I believe I know who your unidentified antagonistic caller is.
Okay, what is it? Is it Pee Wee Herman or who?
No, I believe it's Dave from Comac.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, because Dave used to call all the time, and now he's too scared to call. So then I guess he goes under a little fake name. But yeah, that's a good intel, Joaquin.
Yeah, no, last night his voice, I heard, I recognized, I knew it was Dave from Comac.
All right, anyway, then we'll just call him Dave every time he calls in. Maybe. And look, and by the way, if it is Dave from Comac, I am happy to hear from Dave. That's the thing. Right. I just took Stan's call. You know, I love to hear from everybody. So, Dave, man up and use your real name. Okay, go ahead, Joaquin.
Yeah, you know, the one part of what stance I agree with is that we need to get rid of all the illegal immigrants, you know. And yes, the worst have to go first. But, you know, these states sitting here putting up these kind of battle lines saying that they're going to be sanctuary states, this is against federal law.
Yes.
And, you know,
you're right.
The whole immigration thing, and it comes down to, again, Katz and Cosby today, you know, you guys were talking about how Europe is being conquered, you know, by Islam. And that's going to happen here. And if, you know, let's face it, it's the destruction of white Western Western civilization is what it actually is. And so the Democrats, they're actually willing to surrender America's sovereignty to the international community. If you listen to the way like Mamdani and others talk, you know, they always talk about the international community and international law. That's exactly what they want. They want to flood this country. They want to destroy Western civilization. And, you know, the people behind this, I guess they feel it's going to be easier to rule everyone then.
Or if you allow them in and you do policies that give them free health care or free this, free that, then, you know, you'll have a proclivity of voting for that person. And maybe your brother and your sister will have a proclivity, and maybe your child will have a proclivity. They're sort of built-in voters, you know, because, again, even on this autopsy report, Joaquin, they're not talking about the open borders repercussion. They're just saying we should have had Kamala out a little earlier, which, you know, if that's the solution, boy, they're in even bigger trouble than I thought. Joaquin, you're terrific. Thank you. And now we'll look out for Dave from Comac, courtesy of you. 1-800-848-9222. Let's see if Dave from Comac has the guts to call.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, we're getting more details about this New York, quote, sanctuary state bill. This is pretty striking. Within the bill itself, which Kathy Hochul pushed, that's the governor of New York, not only does it handcuff cops from partnering with federal immigration authorities or even doing informal saying, hey, I think I have an illegal migrant with me here in custody. It also bars ICE agents from most public places like hospitals and parks. And then also it prevents them from wearing masks. This is crazy. You think about all the different protests that have taken place in the streets of New York, and New York always has every single different crazy protest. They all are wearing masks, the protesters, most of the time, especially at these pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian protests. They'll wear the keffiyeh that covers a lot of it, and then they'll wear a mask too as well because they don't want to show their little face. You know, they're afraid of their employer or somebody. You know, they can say death to Israel, but they don't want to show their face. So now Kathy Hochul is saying that ICE cannot wear masks. And she's also going one step further to counties like Nassau County, where Bruce Blakeman is, who's running for governor of New York. She is also saying that they cannot cooperate, that counties like Nassau County cannot get into any of these agreements where they are cooperating with federal law enforcement. And in fact, some of the people who were pushing for this bill that the state legislature there in New York just passed a few hours ago are essentially saying, here's a direct quote, what the state is doing is ensuring that we are not using tax dollars to enforce federal law. So they do not want police to help in any shape or form. What happens if ICE is surrounded? They're just going to say, sorry, stand down. And then you got Mayor Mondani. I mean, this is really scary. We got to pray for our NYPD. Oh, my goodness. And ICE.